Hey everybody, I'm really excited because you're going to get to learn and see all about this amazing corpse flower. You called it Zeus, is that what it's named? Zeus, yes, that's what they've named it. So I'm going to turn the camera around here real quick. And this is Dr. Carol, I can't remember. Yes, and she is the person who has raised, well, you inherited these plants. How long have you had them?
So I've had it 4 years, and I got it when it was about 4 years old.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
So you've been babying a little while. So here it is. It's already starting to close. Carol, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, why don't we show it what it looked like last year? Is over here.
Oh, yeah.
We have 2 plants. So this thing that looks like a small tree, that is what it looked like last year. Maybe bigger, but it's like that. This is actually not a tree. It's one humongous leaf. Okay?
Oh, wow.
And this is how it spends most of its life cycle. And it has a big tuber underground here that while it's doing photosynthesis, it keeps putting nutrients down there underground in this big thing that's like a humongous potato. And then what will happen, this leaf will turn yellow and brown and eventually fall over and be dead above ground, but the tuber is still alive. So I take the tuber out of the ground and then I put it in, I weigh it, and then I put it in another pot that's bigger. The first time I put Zeus in a pot, I thought, oh, this is a big pot. And I realized, oh my goodness, that was not a big enough pot, because by the end of its growing time, the pot had cracks. The tuber was so big, it was making cracks, pushing out. So then it rests for a few months, doesn't do anything, and then it starts to sprout again. And then it usually sprouts again as another leaf. And then each time it's a leaf, the tuber gets bigger. So then this has sprouted twice. Well, Zeus sprouted twice for me as a leaf already. And then last time, when I moved it into this box, I weighed it. It was 50 pounds. I had to have help to weigh it and transplant it because it's so big. I thought, okay, this is finally big enough. It might be a flower this time. It can't be both. It's got to be either a leaf or a flower. So, and you don't know at first. It starts to sprout, and you don't know because there's a sheath that's covering it. You don't know if there's a leaf inside or a flower inside. So that took a while to figure out, and finally there's enough evidence I could say, okay, yeah, it really is a flower. And then the next question is, well, how long is it going to be before it blooms? So there are all these unknowns. Nobody knows how to predict very super well. So anyway, yes, this bloomed. We were actually in here in the greenhouse, Dr. Meish and I, at about 4:30 or something, and she said, is that pulling away a little bit more? I said, yeah, I think you're right. And by a half hour later, we said, oh my goodness, it's much better. And so all the publicity people put out the word, Zeus is blooming! And so, boy, the smell got very, very intense last night. We were here till midnight. The building was open. People were coming through, and the stench was pretty awful. It was my first time with the flowers, so I didn't know how strong. And I thought, I'll go up and sniff it. It can't be any worse than it smells out here. You put your nose down, it's like, oh no, that is a lot more intense. So anyway, that's how it was. Now it's already closing up, and that was just, I left at midnight. I have a picture outside I'll show you of it at midnight. When I came in at 7 o'clock this morning, it was already starting to shut. So, you know, they always say it's 24 to 36 hours. This is just super short, right? And it took 8 years to get to the point where it could do this for one night. And that tall spadix, we call it, that center column, that heats up. And that becomes hot because that's how they volatilize those stinky chemicals that go out then and attract the pollinators that they say beetle, you know, that these are going to be carrion beetles and flesh flies, and they think this is a dead animal carcass where they're going to lay their eggs. So they dive in, down in there, and instead they get covered with pollen, right? And maybe they actually got pollen from another plant that tricked them, and they're bringing it here. So what we did this morning is we cut open this window, if you can see it here, partly so people could view it, and also the person who planted these from seed, Jonathan Ortel, he was able to get some pollen from the darkness plant that had bloomed last week. So he bought the pollen and a paintbrush, cut out this window, and was going to pollinate the female flowers. Because really this whole thing here is not a flower, it's a flowering structure. And the flowers are down here, and the red ones are the female ones, and the yellow ones above are the male ones. And the plant is not supposed to self-pollinate, it wants to cross-pollinate. So what it does that with timing. It makes sure that the female flowers are not ready to pollinate at the same time as its male flowers produce pollen. So the female flowers go first. Like last night when it was really stinky, that's when the female flowers are ready. Okay? So we might have pollinated too late in the morning. I don't know for sure. But anyway, they're then done. They won't, after a while, they won't be able to see any more pollen. So several hours after that, that's when the male flowers will produce their pollen. And by then, the pollinators are probably trying to crawl out. They get dusted with pollen and hopefully fly off to find another stinky plant in nature, right? Did you notice the aluminum foil in there? Yes. That's not so we can drop trash in there, but it's that I have put that in there so that when those start producing pollen, it'll fall into the foil, and then I'm going to put that in a really airtight, sealed up container in the freezer and see if somebody needs us to donate pollen to them, since they're not in the wild, right? And so that is, and this camera here, with this picture here, I think our iPad has run out of juice there, but it has a thermal picture of it, I don't know if you guys saw, that was showing how hot that spadix was even this morning. But the smell must have dissipated. So I think that was mostly, it was 80 inches tall yesterday.
How tall?
80 inches.
80 inches, wow.
And I love having that ruler there. I don't know maybe because we're watching the live stream every morning. I check in and I just keep it on my computer. And then I saw another place that had a clock. Oh yeah, I'm sure a clock. So I think that's pretty much what maybe we're ready to go talk outside and let these people get pictures.
All right, we're going to go outside and learn more, but stay tuned, all right?
Thanks for your patience, everybody. Just finished the introduction. We're going to go talk out there.
Perfect.
Yeah. So thanks for your patience, everybody. All right. All right, so this is actually a cool place here. This is our plant taxonomist has brought in all sorts of native plant species out here. And so, for example, this is the Tennessee coneflower, which was one of the first plants on the endangered species list, and I did my graduate research study on its population genetics and ecophysiology. So I'm very fond. This is not looking as pretty as it should.
Well, sure.
Yeah, but anyway, all these species out here, most of them are rare plants. And you can look at the butterflies and the bees. And this is just a little postage stamp size piece of land, right? That he put native species on. And it's not all these pollinators. It's just so many pollinators all the time. And then you go walk over campus, other places where there's not native plants like this, and you see such a difference here. Mm-hmm. So this just shows people too, I think, what if you planted your yard with native species that are, pollinator friendly,
right?
What a difference it could make. But anyway, we're out here to answer questions.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And so you said that you had the arum for 4 years.
Yes. So Jonathan Ertelt had planted it from seed. I think he got the seeds from Ohio State University, and grew them. And he was the greenhouse manager at the time at Vanderbilt. And then when he retired, he needed to. Well, before he retired, he gave me Zeus. And which was very thrilling. I got this tuber, and I'd never grown it before, so I was very excited. And then he retired and had to get rid of the rest of his Titan arums and some other plants. So he gave me another one, and we have not named that one. And then he gave the Nashville Zoo one, and he gave Sewanee one. So, and the Nashville Zoos bloomed, what was it, a couple years ago?
Now, we weren't living here then, but one of my coworkers said that she had been to that one, and it was amazing.
And I think the Sewanee one has bloomed too. So he's got 3 out of the 4 that I'm aware of have already. So, yeah, and it was nice that he was able to come this morning and help with the process and explaining things to people too. So it was fun.
So from seed, how long does it take to get a plant that size?
Well, like I say, that one is 8 years old.
So
and even that
seed,
other one is 8 years old, but a little bit delayed. But really, Zeus was that size a couple years ago.
Sure, sure.
So, and I don't know. You'd have to ask him. Since I haven't seen it grown from seed, I don't know like the first 4 years how long it took for some of those.
And then so you tried pollinating it, and I mean you can already tell the difference from this morning watching it on the live feed. Just the plant's now going through its natural stages. How long does it take? And I know maybe you don't know, but for that seed to become ripe enough for you to do something with?
Well, what I've heard is it can take 6 to 9 months for that. So the female flower ovary will mature into a fruit that has seed in it, and that to get to maturity will take often 6 to 9 months is what I understand. So,
wow.
So that will take a while. If our pollination wasn't successful, then that whole flowering structure will just fall over and die. If it is successful, that big tall part, the spadix, will fall over, and the other parts will fall off. But the center column where the female flowers are will remain. So we'll kind of probably get a hint about that eventually.
I mean, that's really amazing. It's one of those things that if you've never seen this before, it's like the scale of it. Of course, it didn't smell that bad to me.
Well, it doesn't smell bad. Some people think it's stinking right now, and I said, this is nothing compared to last night. Seriously, it was quite terrible last night. And
what does it smell like? I know it's terrible, but they say corpse.
Everybody describes it different. I mean, to me, it did smell like rotting meat, basically. And I think it smelled particularly that way last night. But other people would describe it like, it smells like rotting, I don't know, it was turnips. And somebody said it smells like sauerkraut. And some people said it smelled like something about onions. But it's a mixture of chemicals, so probably different people are experiencing it a little bit differently.
Well, I think it's like taste and colors, and people see and perceive those things differently.
Yeah.
I know that we've probably had some questions, but I can't see them because it's so bright out here. So I'm sorry, everybody.
Do you want to stand back in the shade?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think that this, I just, appreciate your time. This has been so much fun, and
we've had such a great turnout here. I was just going to say, a lot of times people think animals are more interesting than plants. Not everybody, but a lot of students do, right?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a nice thing where it's a good ambassador for plants,
yeah.
right? Where they realize, plants are interesting too. And,
yeah.
So
how long will it be?
We've had a really good turnout here. Sorry.
How long will it be for people to see it? I mean, I know it's not going to be any
I don't know. Last night they
but...
kept the building open till midnight, and I don't know if they're going to have extended hours tonight also. But it's already, you can see it's already closing up. So today for sure, maybe they'll be able to keep it late, at least to 10, maybe midnight. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, and I'm thinking about the other plant that you have in there now. So, so many things like perennials and annuals, things that we think of with their seasonal kind of rotation or cycles. With tropical plants like this, I don't know what that even means anymore. So this, how often does that plant go through the cycle of regenerating the leaf? And if the second plant loses its leaf, obviously we would all hope that it would bloom next time.
Probably not. I think it's not big enough, but yeah.
You don't think so?
No,
okay.
I think it needs to be bigger. And it probably has another round of being a leaf at least.
Okay, so that would pass, and then the new one would come, and then, okay, so probably at least a year, right?
Right.
Yeah,
probably.
Okay.
So my experience has been, I mean, like you say, in the tropics, it might be more geared toward when's the rainy season.
Sure.
Things like that, right? Rather than, because the day length doesn't really change that much. But I have found here that the leaf structure seems to last around a year. I think it could be more than a year, maybe a little bit. But that is what I've seen, just for a rough estimate.
Sure. And then once it goes dormant, how long before it pushes that next whatever?
So that has been... Partly, I leave it fairly dry when it first goes dormant and it's resting. And so I think if I didn't plant it back very fast, it might be dormant longer. But for me, it's been dormant for 2 or 3 months. I'll let it go a month or 2 months, and then I'll start watering it again. And it'll start sprouting maybe within a month of that. Like Zeus, I repotted it mid-January. And then it was just... So that big brown lumpy tuber has the corm, it's called a tuber, has got like a little structure like my thumb there growing in the middle. That's where it's going to grow from. So that stayed small until when I transplanted mid-January, it stayed small until near the end of March. So basically it started growing in April, and it was slow, and then it picked up steam. And these plants are amazing, like whether they're going to turn into a flower or a leaf. They get to a point where they are growing like 2 inches or 3 inches a day. So it is just fun to watch it. And we have this live stream here on this flower, but I want to have that live stream going every time we have it sprouting
right.
Just because I think it's fascinating and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful plant. So it's not set in stone as to when it does this, but I'd say 2-3 months, maybe 4 months at most dormancy.
Sure. Well, Carol, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, sure.
And what a cool. We'll take some pictures and we'll share them, everybody. And just thank you for joining along.
All right. Thank you.